maybe that's why some people don't start, because it feels like this mountain you have to climb. Some people just might have a bad history with money, and it's nothing to say about the relationship. It's actually, that's because you don't like to look at it. I mean, let's go to some history here. This guy does not like to look at money. Well, because the last thing I want is, it's like something happened, you're like, oh, I thought we had money for this. Like, no.
And the title of today's article, and the link will be in the description below, it is How to Budget and Manage Family Finances. So there are a couple of major bullet points here, and let's go through them here. So the first one is review your income and expenses. What are your thoughts on there?
So I think they just made some nice words to describe a budget.
Yeah. So when it comes to your income and expenses, right? I mean, in a perfect world, it sounds easy, right? Your expenses should not exceed your income. But
so I think they also do a nice job at giving you more instructions, because creating a budget is it's a wide topic, right? There's a lot of things to consider, and it's kind of like, well, where do I start? And maybe that's why some people don't start, because it feels like this mountain you have to climb. And so I like that they say start with a list. You know, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just make a list. Go through your month, and what are you spending your money on? How much is your rent? How much are your utilities? Like, what's on your statement?
I think when you review your expenses, that really shows where your money is going.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then that will show you, actually, wait a minute, I'm still paying for a gym membership, right? They are like, oh, I'm still subscribed to this thing when I don't even use it.
Right.
So it kind of puts into check, like, well, I'm actually losing money that I'm not even taking advantage of. And it comes with, like you said, listing them out.
Right.
Because if you're not aware of these things, I mean, you're just burning money, actually.
Right.
So,
right.
The next one here, it says here, be ready for emergencies. So when we do our budgeting, we have a lot of, we call them buckets.
Buckets.
Yeah. So we put buckets of money, and we have like targeted goals, right? So one is, what if I lose my job kind of bucket, right?
The true emergency fund, the 3 to 6 month monthly expenses set aside for a catastrophic event in our lives. We don't want those things to happen. We hope we never have to touch this money in that way. But we feel, especially having 2 young kids, it's our responsibility to make sure that they'll still have a roof over their head. They will have food to eat. They might not have cable, Hulu. We might have to cancel all of those like little things and go to the library for free and borrow a bunch of DVDs and whatnot. I mean, like, things will have to change should something happen, an emergency. But we plan for these things.
Yeah, I think we also, for like car maintenance, right? Or even our properties too, we have like a emergency fund there too. So just in case we need to, for example, change a refrigerator, or what happened, like, oh my gosh, so many windows or doors got broken.
I think recently one of the furnaces had to be replaced. Or was it the AC? Yeah. Something.
So another one is, it's not really an emergency, but this kind of makes me think about like our HSA. So we have an health savings account. And I mean, our kids have braces, right? And before we kind of move forward to that, we say, all right, have we set aside enough money in there too? Or not only that, we can also say, is there enough cash available for us to one day have a major surgery or some kind of operation, right? And
would it cover the catastrophic out-of-pocket copay or whatever it's called?
Yeah. The nice thing about this topic, because we always talk about budgeting here, but this is one thing that we don't often talk about here, is communicate with your family. Here, I'm just going to read it here. It says, effective communication is essential for managing family finances. It is important to involve your family in the budgeting process and to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And I totally agree with it. I will give you all the praise, though. You've done all the legwork when setting up the budget. I mean, you've actually...
That's because you don't like to look at it. I mean, let's go to some history here. This guy does not like to look at money.
Yeah.
He doesn't like money. Yeah. he doesn't like it. He it scares him. I don't. But I mean, here's a personal story. We needed to visit family, and we needed to buy plane tickets. Plane tickets cost money. That's just something I expect. I expect to pay some money. And we live in the Midwest at a pretty small airport for now, but it's expensive to fly to either coast. And I think a round trip ticket at the time was, you have to expect to pay at least $300 at the time for a plane ticket. This guy, like, could not even book the ticket. I'm like, goodness gracious. Okay, let me just know what time you want to travel. This was before we even had kids.
Yeah, I was having a heart attack.
Yeah, like he couldn't even like book the ticket. He's like, I feel like if I buy the ticket now and then in like 2 days later, the price will go down. I was like, then you call them. If you're really tracking this, you can call and say, hey, the price went down. Can I rebook?
So what's really great about you actually work hard to find these great deals. So kudos to you for finding them. Like I'm just like, okay, when do you want to go? Just take care of all this stuff. But I mean, I was actually trying to refer to a recent story, not before our marriage, right?
Oh.
I was trying to talk about how you first started budgeting when like you did like 3 months worth of like paper work, right?
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of work.
I know, but you went to the like before our marriage, so no, it's okay. So you actually did 3 months of our personal spending, and you had
did it pen and paper.
Yeah, pen and paper, right? I remember you spend every Saturday.
It was like one Saturday a month.
Okay, yeah, and then
it just felt like a lot. It was a
long day. Yeah, it was a long day. You were writing everything out, breaking it down by hand.
Yeah,
and then we shifted to like
it's a subscription model online, very similar to Mint, but Mint doesn't exist anymore.
We use YNAB, right? It's the same concept of a zero-based budget,
and it tracks everything that you connect to it. I mean, you can manually do it too. So that's what I liked, because our banks are kind of small, but we do have some banks that we're connected with. But yeah, it makes a lot easier, especially since it follows the zero-based budgeting principle. We can set up our buckets the way we want to, and I can see how we're doing. So like we have a birthday bucket, just comes to mind because we just had a birthday in our family. And so there's what I did was I looked at previous years and I added up how much did we spend on each person for our birthdays, for our household. And that's just my annual goal of setting aside every month, so that throughout the year we should have enough to celebrate everyone's birthday without, going into debt. Yeah. And so it gives me a good cue card, like, okay, I think we just celebrated the last birthday for the year, right? So it's like, okay, where are we? Oh, we're still good. We didn't overspend. So you know what? That money's going to roll over to next year. I don't really have to set aside anymore, or I can work towards saving up for the next birthday for next year. And it's a good way. It's an easy way to see where everything is, but that's not the topic here.
No, I mean,
communicate with family.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, kudos to you for actually setting this all up, because then now that we have YNAB, right, you can look faster now how it works. The key in this bullet point here is communicating with your family, and very true. Tool. I don't like looking at the money.
But when you ask,
exactly,
I can find things pretty quickly.
Yeah. So I kind of like, you do all the hard work and I just check on you, like, how are we doing? Mm-hmm. Or sometimes you say, hey, we actually have a surplus, or where do you want to put it, right?
Right. And, or like, we're not going to do this anymore. Yeah. So where should we allocate this bucket?
Yeah. And to be honest, I put a lot of trust in you. I'm like, I trust you, but you actually involve me. So you actually said, hey, let's talk about this.
Well, because the last thing I want is, it's like something happened. You're like, oh, I thought we had money for this. Like, no. Yeah, I moved it on my own.
No, actually, I think there was that situation where I did assume, right? Like, oh, we have X amount of dollars. Like, no, we don't. I said, oh, okay. Thank you for bringing me back to reality. I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it helps us not be so surprised, right? I mean, I think a lot of couples, they fight about money, right? And I think sometimes because they're not on the same page.
Right. Well, money is not an easy topic to talk about, even if you've been married for so many years. Yeah. Some people just might have a bad history with money, and it's nothing to say about the relationship. It's just, different people come from different situations, and money might be hard to talk about. And so
it's very personal. People feel that may be judged,
Yeah. And I imagine I feel like we're lucky that we can talk about. I feel like since we started dating, we talked about money, and not in a, I mean, not in a flashy kind of way, which is kind of like, hey, buddy, you want to get involved with this? I got a lot of debt. Like, I'm going to be working this for a while. But I think with this topic of communicating with family, I think we've even started to involve the kids in this. It's like, okay, guys, we're going to start saving up for a trip. So we're going to not eat out as much so that we can save up for this trip a little faster. Yeah. And I think the kids understand that. And so they don't ask, like, can we get pizza tonight or something like that. It's like, maybe we'll do, instead of eating out every weekend, it's like every other weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, because I initially was talking about you and I as a couple, but yet really involving our kids. I think that's something that we've done organically without really being conscious about it, but it's allowed them to understand how our family finances work also.
Right. It's not, we're not depriving ourselves. We're doing this for a reason, you know?
Yeah, going back to also, like, we recently celebrated our son's birthday, right? And typically, like, kids, when they're young, they have birthday parties, and sometimes you go all out special, right? And I think as they get older, right, we kind of fine tune their celebration. Like, we asked our son, hey, how would you like to spend it this time around? Like, are you okay with not a big party, right? Like, we're trying to just be more conscious. And he said he just wanted ramen, right? And like, just go, and we actually surprised him with a nice store, right? It was very simple. And I mean, he doesn't ask for much, right? But communicating to your family and your kids so that they're not saying, hey, I want this toy. I mean, we have another child that said, hey, I want this toy, but trying to be realistic, like, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, right? So I think involving everyone, not just the spouses, right? But also the children. If we're all...
To their capacity.
Correct, to their capacity. Then it's not like it's a blind saying, no, we can't buy it, right? They're more understanding of it, right? And then they can see where we value investing our money or putting more towards, right? Is it just a temporary satisfaction, or is it something that they can really enjoy in the long run too? The next thing on this article, I think this is really interesting because we don't talk about this often, is it has here a family and finances checklist. And once again, if you want to see the article, there's a link in the description here. But it asks a lot of questions here.
And it's all just questions. Yeah. It's not really a checklist. No. It's more, well, it is a checklist, but it's things that we talked about early in our marriage. And when we did some of these things, people kind of looked at us. They kind of thought, well, wow, that's kind of morbid. Like, you're so young, you know, why are you thinking about these things? Why are you doing these things? Like, you're too young to be thinking about these things.
Yeah, so before we get into more detail, what this thing is talking about is it asks questions like, do you have an updated will? Are there family heirlooms you would like to give to specific family members? Do you have guardians for your minor children? Do you have a durable power of attorney? Do you have a living will? Life insurance? I mean, like you said, it sounds really morbid when you talk about these things. But when we were actually working with our financial advisor, that's one thing he recommended, to have estate planning.
Right.
And
we didn't at the time really have an estate. Yeah. It was mostly our life insurance policies should one of us pass away, and any investments we had at work. We didn't have any properties. We didn't even have our own house. We were basically renting, right? So, well, you had a house, but we were going to sell that one. But what I'm trying to say is we didn't have a lot to give our kids, but we still did it because should something happen to us, whoever was going to take care of our kids, we wanted it to be an easy transition, because that's going to be a big grief already to, you know, overcome. We didn't want money to be a hindrance in taking care of our child at the time.
Yeah. Another thing is that, yes, we have a will. We actually even have a trust too, but we've actually recently revised it. So some people, they have a will, and some don't even have a trust. But for us, understanding over time, we've collected a couple of assets now. How do we want to pass that down to our children? We even have it into our trust. If you correct me if I'm wrong, right? We actually have it in there where, you know, if we are to pass away
while they're still minors,
we don't give them as a lump sum. We give them like even thirds to help them different milestones in life,
right? At certain ages.
Yeah. So this is something that we've actually communicated not just to our children, but to those that we've assigned to take care of our children as well, right? Like, we have a security box. So when it comes to,
And when we have those conversations,
Yeah.
I mean, the mood just kind of goes,
I would say, this is the address.
this is the key where this belongs, and this is the address. These are the people you need to call. Don't worry about it. Like, they will guide you through it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a not a very common conversation to have when you start talking about, all right, I'm trying to build wealth for the future, but also you have to talk about, potential death.
yeah, I think even if you don't have a lot of, you don't think you have a lot of assets, just think about, if you have life insurance, or even through your work. A lot of work jobs these days offer, some sort of death benefit, like 1 year's salary or something like that. Those are lump sums of money that is pretty large, that your family it'll go somewhere. Now, while you have the chance to have a say in where it goes and how it takes care of your family, you might as well do that.
Yeah. And the last one here, it says seek professional help. When we first started, we've actually had a financial advisor as a friend. And actually, not as a friend, but they became our friend. But my understanding of financial advisor back then was something like, okay, how do you make your money grow? I mean, they can assist you with that, but everyone has a different journey, a different goal in life here. So when you seek a professional, they would like to understand where you are today and what are your overall goals in the future.
I mean, that would be our advice. If you're seeking a financial advisor, they should be asking you what your goals are. They shouldn't be telling you what their goals are, because everyone's goals in life are different. If you have kids, what are your goals? If you don't have kids, you don't plan on having kids, what are your goals? When do you want to reach these milestones? And then your financial advisor or your financial professional should be able to help you reach those goals and give you options. I think it's important that you are their number one priority, not necessarily them. I think it's important to make sure you have a good financial.
Yeah, we talk about like the term like fiduciary, right? Is your advisor a fiduciary, meaning that in short, that they have your best interest at heart? I mean, people come to us and have questions, and we are more than happy to answer people's questions, but also I think what they're looking for is someone to tell them what to do.
And we can't.
Yeah, we don't do that. If anything, we try to help them. We try to inform them as much as possible so they can make the best decision for their own personal self, right?
I think what we tend to do is just have people ask themselves, what do they want? Like, because they say, I have all this money, what should I do? I was like, well, what do you want to do? If you're like 80, how long do you expect to live? Who do you want? Do you want to spend this money? Or you want to give it to someone when you pass away? Because if you're 80, the clock's ticking.
Yeah, someone called me, an old family member, said, what should I do with money? And I said, why? I mean, jokingly, right? Because I know them really well, but it's really like, what are your goals, right? And just going back to this overall topic of family finances, right? Communicating with your family is very important. Being honest overall, not keeping secrets with your spouse or even your children. Like, don't go on that vacation that you cannot afford. Save up for that vacation, but don't spend money like you have it just flowing in like
and I think that's also important for kids to see that these magical vacations aren't necessarily magic. Like, your parents put in effort to either hopefully pay it off or save up. And I think if kids are understanding that there's effort involved, not just the planning effort, but like the monetary effort, that wow, mom and dad saved up for this so we can have this experience. I think that's important, because then when they grow up and become young adults, it's like, man, how do we go on those vacations? Because you see young people like collecting debt so easily, so quickly. And I'm not talking about just educational debt. I'm talking about like consumer debt. And it's like, did no one tell you? And you see these interviews online. It's like, no one told me. And while I think it's great to have magical moments with children and experiences, there are ways to have those experiences without a big ticket item every quarter, every, big birthday or something like that. Maybe birthday is a bad example, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think that's kind of where we've really changed our mindset with our money and became more intentional, because we were thinking about how can we prepare our children for the future, because we were working, you know, decent jobs, right? The money comes in, we live a humble
But I also
lifestyle.
had a big debt.
Yeah.
So that was like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
topic.
But how can we prepare our kids for the future,
Right.
right? And for us to really understand our money, to really understand it, and then finally impart that to our kids, I feel like every day they're learning also from us, that when they become adults,
These conversations will be easy.
exactly,
Yeah.
it's not a surprise to them.
Right.
So,
And I hope it'll help them find partners in life where this is a normal conversation. It's not like, they're not communicating either. I like that they hear us have conversations about, like, about money. Not bragging about money, but like, how are we going to do this? Okay, do we have a plan? They hear the way we're thinking, and sometimes we're just thinking out loud and sharing. But I feel like we're modeling what we hope they find in the future is a partner where they can share, what's going on and being honest, instead of, I'll say this, when I was younger, I saw couples who are decades older than me. I saw them hiding stuff from their spouses. Like, we would go shopping, and instead of bringing the shopping bags into the house, they would hide it in the garage. I'm like, you bought all that stuff to just put it in the garage? And I was a kid at the time. I didn't understand. They were hiding their shopping from their spouse. And I don't want to live. I don't want that for myself, and I don't want that for my kids, for our kids.
So I think this is a good question to ask the audience. Do you have a budget? And how are you with your family members? Are they involved? Is it just one person in your household? Or are you kind of keeping it to yourself? Or how do you communicate with one another? Well, let us know below in the comments below. Once again, we are Jacqueline and Jonathan from Parent Portfolio, and we thank you for your time. Have a good one.